Hi, this is Brian from Heretic, and you are experiencing Poppitt's Corner.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Poppitt's Corner. Thoroughly excited. Another crossover, I guess, edition of the show here. I'd like to bring on the wonderful Mr. Matt Hartnett. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks you guys for both having me, Shannon and Tanner. Appreciate being on Poppitt's Corner again. Love it.
We're glad to have you, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And of course, you can't forget Mr. Shannon Fry, of course, the wonderful co-host. How you doing today, Shannon?
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Couldn't be better,
wonderful. One, everything's great.
Good. Awesome. All righty, gentlemen. Well, like I said, thanks again for coming on. I'm thoroughly excited for this one. What I thought we would do for this particular episode is I always hear people talk about streaming and downloading and this, that, and the other, but I've never really actually got told the overall history of streaming and downloading per se, and the benefits and pros and cons to each of the existing kind of mediums to have music or to consume music. So I would love just a little history lesson and fill in some of the gaps. So if you guys are ready, I'd love to get started and just talk shop with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let's do it.
So my question, I'm going to start with this one, is from your guys' recollections, when did downloading come into play here? Because again, streaming is way later, so we'll get to that portion a little bit later, but I'm talking when it initially started, downloading was like the hot new thing.
Mm-hmm. I would say that started in 98, I think, is when it really kicked off. Because that's when Napster was going. That's when all these torrents were in effect. There was Limelight, I think that's what it was called. LimeWire. Yeah. So and I ain't gonna lie, I was all about that. I downloaded so much shit. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say 98 is when it started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Sharon's right on point. It was late 90s. Especially, a lot of labels. It's just quickly, I remember doing an interview with this guy, Tom Hazelmeyer. He ran Amphetamine Reptile Records, which is sort of like a noise rock record label, right, out of Minnesota. And when I interviewed, he was saying, to me that, he shut their label down around 98 because he knew that was taking over and they were not ready or prepared for it. And they just knew it was completely going to change the landscape. And they saw that. And they got out, because of that. He just dropped the label. He just stopped because he just knew this was going to be a whole different ball game that probably an independent label like that couldn't, compete in. And so, I agree, Shannon. Right, late 90s, right there. Mm-hmm.
Now, Matt, you bring up a great point with the bigger labels and downloading and whatnot. And I've always been kind of curious, and I'm sure it's been in documentaries and whatnot. But has this question ever been answered where it's, we had the technology to kind of control downloading even in the late 90s and whatnot, and just nothing was done. Like nothing was done by labels. They thought it was a fad. They thought it was like a tick, kind of it's going to go away in a month, but it obviously it ended up folding a lot of labels. So I'm just generally curious why that never came to be.
Well, go ahead, Sean.
Part of it did. And then it backfired on them. I think it was Sony or Warner Brothers, one of the two. I remember they tried to insert this coding inside the CDs. So when it would go to rip on your computer, it would shut your computer down. Mm-hmm. And then it would mess up your computer, and it backfired on, I believe it was Sony that did that. Mm-hmm. And that's where it stopped. They were afraid to move on because they got sued so bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I remember the two. I remember they were trying to. I think they made. I remember right when that Napster thing was happening. The one I don't know which label. Like I said, I think it might have been Sony. I remember they tried to sue a few. They just took a random, say, I think like 15 to 20 people across the country. I believe it was just here too in the States, if I remember correctly. And they basically put out lawsuits, the labels, to be like, you're ripping off music. Because they wanted to make an example. And like Shannon said, it absolutely backfired on them. It made them, it didn't work, obviously. The thing was, I think what it comes down to is, it's going on till today. You know, it's a broken business model. When downloading came along, it just destroyed the business model, right? The traditional business model, the record business, and they've never recovered. They've never adjusted. That what they've done is just taking. They're going to get paid, and they're just like, we're just going to take more and more away from the artists. They've never. The model is still the same. They still use the same broken model because they didn't care about embracing it and making sure that the artists were taken care of, it, that they could continue to create and make a living off the music. No, they just were like, well, we don't know anything else. We're not going to change our ways. You guys are going to change. We're going to take more, just more away from the artists and let the rest of the people deal with it and deal with it. That's it. And it really just happened to today. So it's just so interesting. Yes, how long it's been broken, this model, yet it's still the same model. They've never adjusted or changed it.
So somewhat kind of like how the business model was even before downloading, because the business model was broken even before that. So they didn't give a shit then. They didn't give a shit now. So
yeah,
they've always, it's just interesting. So when you guys specifically found downloading music and whatnot, how did that specifically change your listening habits?
For me, it was preventing from buying something that sucked, because I was spending at least $150, $160 every paycheck on buying CDs. And out of the $150, $160, that's 10, 11, 12 CDs maybe. And of those 11 or 12 CDs, 4 of them would be good and the rest are garbage. So instead of buying and having to experience and be let down that you bought something that was total garbage, you were able to listen before you went and bought it. So that's what I did. I would download, and then if I liked it, I would go buy it.
Yeah, no, and very, in a way similar. I really didn't get into downloading. Really, I would say probably. When Napster and everything came out, right, I tried doing, LimeWire and BitTorrent and all that stuff. And I remember always getting the viruses on my computer. And I remember being like, man, this is just such a pain in the ass. I'm just gonna do it the old fashioned way. I still bought CDs. I did probably up until mid to late 2000s. I was always buying CDs. And then when I had my label is when I realized how much downloading was taking hold, because I wasn't selling any CDs as a label. Everyone was downloading. And even my bands didn't know this, and I remember, I made out with it because part of the deals I made with the bands with label was I would get, a majority of the portion of the downloads. And we started realizing no one was buying CDs, and I started realizing that. And I remember when it started, and I know we'll get to streaming a little bit, but I remember I never really thought it was going to last. The reason why I didn't think, because the quality of the song, the quality of the music when you download it or you streamed it, it was crap. It wasn't good. So I was like, well, to me, I'm just going to buy the CD because the quality is still good, and I'm going to still, I stuck with that. But yeah, I mean, but to me, once I think anybody, once you got used to downloading or now, of course, streaming, I like downloading because I get a little sample of a song, and I didn't have to buy it. Like Shannon was saying, how much money did we all waste, right? Buying those CDs because we didn't even know the songs on these CDs. It was one of those well, if you want to know what it is, you got to buy it in order to listen to it. We did that for years. Exactly. How much money did we waste on these shitty CDs and these shitty albums? I mean, it was one of those points where you would listen to the album so much to try to get yourself to like it because you spent $20 on it. You're like, there's at least 1 or 2 songs in there I can like, and it's kind of fool yourself into liking it because you spent so much money on it. But I think we were all sick of that, and that's why when people complain too about downloads and streams, yes, I get it, because it's really, like I said, it's destroyed the model. But don't blame it on the streams and downloads. Blame it on the business, itself, the industry, because it's great to be able to sample this music before you buy it, because we're all tired of wasting our money, like Shan said. I mean, out of every 10 albums, half maybe you got, and that was a great thing. And then maybe you get at least a few songs in some of those other albums. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why people ditched, the traditional way of buying music, because spending $20 for a CD and it having suck it was too much, and it backfired. So anyway, yeah.
So how did downloading, oh my gosh, I keep wanting to say streaming, but how did downloading affect the movie industry and the adult entertainment industry, because I think this kind of plays into all of entertainment itself, not just music. So in your kind of opinions and whatnot, how did that affect those two business models?
With the general movie public, the Warner Brothers and Lionsgate and all that, it affected them because it started taking people out of the theaters when that's where their income came from, and which continues to today, as you see on the streaming Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, all these. That's where that ended up. So it's still taking people out of the movie theaters. The adult entertainment industry went full on into the streaming, download, whatever. But the general, whatever you would call it, is still relying on that movie theater money. You know what I mean? That model. And so
Well,
to them
I-
right now, it's a half and half. And I think eventually it's going to come to a head, and either they're going to shut down or just everything's going to be streaming.
See, I have to disagree with you as far as nowadays, because what I think is happening is that they're still making money from streaming. So they're not focusing, I guess, all their revenue into movie theaters and whatnot. They're focusing it into the streaming platform. So they're still getting paid. I'm pretty sure Hollywood is still getting paid and whatnot through streaming platforms just as much as they would, say, a movie theater.
But don't
only
you think
difference
they're
is now,
losing money?
well,
Don't you think they're okay? Like, we'll put this into perspective for a second. You pay for Netflix, you $10.99, $9.99, unless you do the upgrade, $12.99. Okay, that's $12.99. How much did it cost you to go to a movie theater? And how much of that movie theater took the money that went to that movie that movie company, and how much of it did they keep themselves? See, that's a big thing too. Now, I think a majority of that, when you went and bought your ticket to that movie theater, I think a very good portion of that went to the movie theater. The movie company, and I think that small portion was left behind to keep their popcorn running, their soda machines running, their candy, their hot dogs, their nachos, whatever, right? So I think they are losing money now. You know what I mean?
See, I disagree, because why would the entertainment industry or movie industry give a fuck about selling popcorn at a movie theater? Because the movie theater, that would just benefit the movie theater. So I think
That's my
the
point.
Hollywood, I think Hollywood is still making its money from streaming. I think that's a bad example. But again, Matt, let us know what you think when it comes to
No,
this thing.
I think in a lot of ways, Sharon's right too. What I think is that no, I because you're still selling the experience of a movie theater, right? You know what I mean? You're still selling that experience of going and buying popcorn and watching. That's the whole thing. I think with that's just like even just listening to music, right? The experiences is different, right? You don't sit down, put that vinyl on, and listen to that thing straight through anymore. People are just it's fast. There's a new song every day. There's a new movie every day. I mean, yes, Hollywood is still going to make their money somehow. They've probably, I'm sure these theaters aren't getting as much of a cut for each ticket as they once were. That's why they've got to rely now mostly on popcorn and food. That's why a lot of them now allow alcohol. There used to be, now most theaters allow alcohol in there. And there's a reason for it, because they want to get you into that experience. Buy that beer. They'll even deliver it to you. A lot of these theaters will deliver you, will bring it to your seat. So they've had to, of course, I agree. I think Hollywood's still going to make their money, just like the music business is still going to make their money. They're going to take it away from other, avenues to get that. But at the same time, they are losing money. There's no doubt. If you think about, even just look, I'm not a huge movie guy. I'm really not a huge movie entertainer. I don't watch much TV, movies. I very rarely go to the movie theater. And even just watch movies in general. I'm more of a documentary, music guy. That's it. But, they're definitely, the business is losing a lot of money in the movie business. If you just think of the talent they have, right? Think of the lack of ideas in new movies. Why do you think they're making so many remakes and they're doing so many Batmans and so many Spider-Mans? And I mean, they can't be enough. They just want so many Harry Potters. It's because they have no creative talent anymore. So where it's suffering is they're not hiring outside talent. If you look at all the actors and actresses, what is it? It's all nepotism. It's all everybody's son and daughter and cousin, nephew, niece, all that. So yeah, they might not be, that's the way, that's how they're, I think, saving money. They're not scouting talent. They're just bringing in within their family members or people within their circles. Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood is just a big little club, more so than ever. The talent scouts. I mean, really, is there any such thing anymore? I mean, when do you see a new actress or actor coming up that's not related to someone, or doesn't have some sort of inside? You're not seeing these actresses that are growing up in the middle of America, and then they're moving to Hollywood and making it big anymore. That just doesn't, just like with musicians, right? It doesn't happen anymore. It's just they're not scouting talents. It's like now if you're a musician, you want to get on a bill. All right, if you pay the promoter $15,000 to get on this Anthrax show, they'll take it and they'll let you on there. Same thing with movies and entertainment, right? They're not really. Because of that, that's why the talent and the actual artistic output is suffering. We're not seeing anything unique and new in movies. Especially in movies and TV and stuff, and of course music too. Music, it's there, but they're obviously just not promoting it and signing bands and trying to help them. So I think Sharon's right. They are losing money, there's no doubt. But at the same time, I know what you're saying, Tanner. They are still, though, they're going to make their money somehow. They're not going to, they're going to make it up somehow in some way, and they're cutting corners in other avenues to try to do that. And it's really, it really goes hand in hand with what you see in music as well. Just entertainment in general. I think it's all pretty, homogenous in that way. It's all pretty, conclusive or inclusive. They're all doing the same thing.
Well, yeah, and again, politics aside, I'm going to steer clear of this conversation, but what I think is suffering is the amount of risk now involved with making records and making movies is like slim to none. Like they have to fucking make a profit or else they're done. It's kind of like bands now, you have to have a hit on the first album or you're fucking done. Like that's just that's what it is in the quote unquote mainstream. Although who wants to be an actor? Come on. Like, does anybody really sit there and give me a break? Give me a fucking break here.
There's a lot of people that want to be actors. A ton.
So even with everything that's gone on with, say, like the Me Too movement and all that stuff, like people still want to like go through that like cesspools.
People want to be famous and popular and have money. I mean, absolutely. I mean,
so
as long as Hollywood exists, there's always people that are going to want to be actors, and of course.
So what's the difference now between being a YouTube star and being in Hollywood? Is my point. Because
I see what you're saying.
You could just like do it all yourself now. You don't need to kind of go through all those channels that we kind of once had to go through. So that's all I'm saying when it comes to that stuff, because everybody's a star. We're stars, right? But it's like, I mean, people are entertained by us, and that's what we give to the world. So I don't see any difference between that and Hollywood at this point, because the internet is kind of and I mean, we can all go off at this point too. The internet is absolutely has changed every fucking industry, better or worse. But when it comes to downloading, so obviously with movies, I want to mention this too. With downloading, you started to see more piracy, more bootlegs with movies. Remember you would get like a DVD or something, and they would have that fucking ad that was like, stealing is illegal. You wouldn't go into a video store and just take it off the shelf. So, but I still have some of them. I was laughing my ass off watching that specific ad, but you started to see more of that stuff come into fruition during the late 90s and early 2000s because people were bootlegging. Because again, movie tickets were fucking expensive, just like CDs were, right? So people, if it's free, people will happily take it.
Right?
Yeah.
When people used to sneak their video camera in and film the movie and then transfer it to DVD, and then you get stuck with it because you downloaded it from BitTorrent.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference now. It's right because no one buys DVDs, so you can once again obviously have a black market for these DVDs. People would sit there in a movie theater and record, right, and just had that steady hand and record it and sell them on the street for $5, but no one even has DVD players, right? So it's like, just slowly. It's like with cars. Cars have no CD players. I mean, they've made it to a point where you have no choice now but to download and stream. There really is another choice. I mean, unless obviously you buy vinyl or you want to buy some other musical format. But in reality, if everyone likes to listen to stuff in their car and stuff, well, now you got to have Bluetooth. I mean, it's just gone. It's obsolete. At least for now.
I think that's done on purpose, but again, we won't get into that aspect because yeah. But I think the adult entertainment industry has it fully embraced downloading and streaming in general, because that industry is fucking massive. I mean, dude, 30% of things on the internet or searches are for porn and whatnot. So that industry has totally embraced that specific field. I don't know how much benefit that played with them compared to the music and movie industry.
It's always been what's that word?
Sleazy?
Yeah, but people have always kind of pushed that away. That's not good. That's not, you know what I mean? So obviously it's going to keep pushing itself one way or the other. Before I was VHS, then when it went to DVD, that didn't last long, and all of a sudden it's on everything streaming.
Well, and like you said, Ted, I mean, it's with that stuff, with the adult entertainment stuff. Obviously, for one, what they did is they made a lot of it free, right? So people get it free, but you know how that stuff is. That stuff you want more and different stuff, So it's sort of to hook you in. You get free stuff. I mean, you could even just go on a newspaper or anything, and you're going to see some sort of even if it's a soft core type of thing, it's going to be right there. Like I said, just even publications that were once, whether, I mean, I'm not really talking about political, but just music, anything. You go on a website now, there's something there connected that has some sort of sexual connotation to it. There's some picture, something that's going to get you to click on something. And that's all the psychological thing, right? That's all the psychology. That's to tap into people's, pleasure principles in their head that, you see something, boom. I mean, obviously we've seen that, done all over the place. They use that we see with social media, right? When you get people with their little red thing on their likes or their friend requests or whatever, it's an endorphin, it's endorphin rush, and it gets people to go, oh, man. And they know, I mean, these people on social media and these websites, they know that that's what it's meant to do. It was created to, hit everyone's, pleasure principles where you're keeping coming back for more. And obviously, like I said, if they just put, like I said, I've just publications I've read over the years. Now you go on there, it looks almost like tabloid because they've got so much spam of porn kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's in your face every day, all day when you're on the internet. Just right where you go, something's there to lead you down that direction.
I mean, the 1980s were sorely based on that model. If I can be completely honest,
it started there. Yeah, I agree.
Because everybody wanted to be a rock star to get girls, obviously to do drugs and whatnot too. But a lot of it was to get girls and whatnot. So, so during the 2000s, right? How did downloading to me was still massively popular up until maybe 2011, 12 era.
Yeah.
So during that whole time, what did you guys start to see more of? Just again, how the business model changed due to all the downloading.
I don't think I changed. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that one, man.
See, because what I started to notice was more of an influx of people discovering bands that they otherwise wouldn't because of downloading. Like, they would remember how they would put I'm going to use Weird Al as an example, right? They would put other people's parody songs and put it to Weird Al. So when you typed in Weird Al and something, you would see all these other songs that weren't actually Weird Al. They were other people's, parodies and whatnot. I know it's just a weird example here, but I started to discover more bands because of that. Band A sounds like Band B.
But they were doing that as far back as the 80s.
I understand it, but I'm saying I noticed more of, I guess, the underground being discovered that way. is my point, in the 2000s. And because again, you had MySpace, and this is when social media comes into play here, and you started to have labels scouting new bands because of MySpace.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That was when it took on a different approach to how they did it, but it was still being done as far back as the 80s and the late 80s, early 90s. So for example, when you used to buy like the Metal Maniacs magazine or whatever, I'm just going to use this as an example. There would be like some small label, and it would look at the releases, it would show the album cover, and then underneath that it would say, for fans of bands like blah 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 blah, and then the next one, Doom Death for bands, if for fans of whoever it may be, that when they're all bigger bands that they're referring to, that you may like this band. Now what your point is, when it got to MySpace, it was more easily accessible because you didn't have to go find those bands and import those and still spend a shit ton of money hoping they didn't suck. Now MySpace came and they had the player, so you can just scrounge through each of the songs and be like, okay, I like this band, add this band as my friend, right? That's
the top 8, dude. Remember?
Yeah, top 8, top 10.
But yeah, Matt, go ahead. What did you start to notice with how the industry was kind of moving forward in the mid 2000s there?
Yeah, I think what it's done is kind of like, in a way, Shannon was alluded to, it's the singles. What it did was it made people realize, okay, I don't have to buy this whole album. And that's what I did. I was like, okay, I could go on, say I was using iTunes, I'd go on and I could listen to a minute clip. If I already heard a song that I liked, okay, if I heard it, like, I used to have like a Sirius, XM, radio. I'd go on. If I liked the song I heard, I would go and download it. I could hear clips of the other songs, but I didn't have to buy the whole album. And I like that. I don't have to spend $1 or $2 buying the song. Now, if I listen to the clips, I'm like, oh, this sounds like it's going to be a really awesome album. Cool. I'll buy the $9.99 album. I'll buy it, download it. But for once, I was listening to some of the songs. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this one. I could go through each song and just, pick one or two of them out and download a song, which, like, again, the 80s, remember, there's cassettes, they were selling cassette singles, all the time, and that's what, so instead of having to buy the album, for people who may, that just watched MTV and maybe weren't really into that music, or even, but they like that one, say, power ballad that, Guns N' Roses did or whatever, they could just buy the song and not have to buy the whole album. And I think that's what kind of downloading did was, and I think as a music consumer, I love that, because like we've been saying, we're all sick of buying these $15.99 plus CDs with a couple of good songs on it. We could spend $1 each download and it'd be cheaper, for one, and then this way like I said, you're not wasting your money. Now, of course, I don't think, obviously, for labels, yeah, that's not good. For bands, that's not good. They relied, because the model is still there. Remember, it's a broken model that everyone is still using. Not everyone, but at least the major labels and most of the music industry was still using. So they, of course, felt the pinch. But I think as consumers, music consumers, it was great. And even as, you guys would be obviously, able to tell me as musicians in your bands, if that was good for you guys. I don't know if that was better, that way, or maybe it was better just selling a whole CD. But at least you got people, I think, buying your music. It might only been one song, but at least they're there. You could hook them in better, where if people weren't so sure, were they really, let's be honest, in the mid 2000s, people just weren't willing to spend that money on CDs anymore. I know I wasn't. That's why I sold very little records, on my label, because everyone was done with that. Why do that if you can get it for free? At least if you paid $1 to download a song, most people would be like, okay, I'll support the band, buy a song or two, download, but I'm not going to spend $15 on buying a record. So it was sort of that was, I think, when things really started to turn. Really when the downloading hit. Of course, and then we're here today with the streaming and everything. But I think that was really the start of it. What we're seeing to today. Yeah.
Shannon, go ahead. I want you to answer his question though. How how were you affected by this when it came to people only purchasing one song of yours, or did you ever take notice of this? Because I know you were signed to a couple labels and were putting out records. I came a little bit later, so go ahead.
To me, it wasn't ever about how much money I was making. It was about how many people were able to hear the band and if you liked it. That's what meant the most to me. I could, the money come and go. You know what I mean? Sure, money's nice. Money's always nice. Everybody likes money. But my personal satisfaction was them hearing it. And if they liked it, sure, they went and bought it. But as long as they liked the band, that's what I grew on. You know, that's where it hit me. So that's basically my answer.
Okay.
And did it help? Did it help? Yeah. Yeah. In a big way. More people were able to access what we were doing. So
And-
that helped. Yeah.
And with Matt, I want to kind of go off of a point that you had mentioned a little bit ago with labels, obviously, with the single printing like a single cassettes and whatnot. I mean, for one, that's tangible stuff. I don't think people like a lot of tangible aspects as far as
Not
that goes.
anymore. Yeah,
Not
true.
anymore. Although there is a boom in vinyl. I'm sure labels fucking hate
Yes.
that. I'm sure
Mhm.
they hate that because they have to spend money to produce
Yeah.
that stuff. Because
Sure.
what streaming and downloading did,
Yep.
especially streaming, is nothing's tangible.
Yeah.
Like you
Mhm.
literally could just click a button and it's there.
Mhm.
Right. But the other problem that I have with streaming and whatnot is it can literally be gone with a click of a button. That's why I have to own my own shit.
Mhm.
Stuff can be censored. There are bands out there that have remixed albums that suck ass, that aren't the original, aka we recorded stuff and claimed it to be a remix. I fucking hate that stuff. So if you own an original, they can't take that away from you.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that's also the type of music fans you are, right? There's so many different types of music fans. The music fans who are the casual fans, to them, buying vinyl, it's not an interest, right? They just want to have that song, and yeah, of course, and like you said, yeah, the labels aren't really, that's what they're more catering to is the casual fan, right? I mean, guys, people like us, yeah, we're the ones buying vinyl. I mean, we'll buy everything. But yes, in terms of just getting that song across, they don't like vinyl, but what they do like is, what they want is, obviously is just for you to buy something. Now, of course, now, right? The fact that we don't see CDs, like you said, if there's no CD players in cars right now, it shows you where they're at. They've kind of given up with the physical, tangible product. They know that there's not a future for it. You're gonna, there's, of course, like you said, the big music fans, you're gonna sell some of that, right? But you see a lot of labels, even when they print up, vinyl now, it's like they're printing up 100, 200 records. I mean, bigger labels, of course, a little bit more, but not, but most labels are only putting up a few hundred, records. And they're just relying now really on downloads and streams because once again, they're getting the majority of that money. Like I said, they're just keep taking and stealing away from the artists, and they're not going to stop, because they've already let it be known. They've telegraphed that, look, we're not changing anything. We're old guys. We're set in our ways. We don't know about this whole streaming thing because we don't care to know. We don't care about the fans. We don't care about the artists. We just want to make our return on investment. We want to make our money. And so the easiest way for them to do it is just take it piece by piece I mean, like you said, they're not even just doing it with streaming, as you guys know, they're doing it, I mean, it trickles down, right? You've got venues now that've got, they take percentage of the merch. I mean, it all trickles down because each person's not making their money, but they're going to find eventually a way to make their money. And it just, in the end, who does it affect? It affects the artist, because I mean, at least the consumers, we could still buy it. If we could buy the downloads, we could just do the streaming, or we could buy vinyl. We have a choice, but it's the artists that really are in limbo where they just want to get their music out. And they have to just, agree to or accept whatever it is, whether it is buying a vinyl or buying a download or streaming. They just have to accept it. They have no choice. So once again, yeah, the labels they're never going to change. They haven't changed in 20 plus years. They're never going to change.
So let's move ahead real quick to streaming in general. To me, I noticed it during, again, 2012, 2013 was when Pandora first came on my radar. Not even Spotify was around, in my opinion. Pandora was the first. And I remember specifically you had to submit a song to Pandora and they had to approve it before they could put it on their platform. Nowadays, you can pay like a digital distributor, and get your shit everywhere, you know. But what I started to notice when streaming actually happened was it totally leveled the playing field as far as discovering bands.
Yes.
Because you could be the biggest band in the world and the smallest band, but you're on the same now playing field. It doesn't matter if you were signed, you know, you have your core fan base that's dying out already and whatnot. But you know, for all of us, the bands that were, you know, up and coming, we got quote unquote a fair shot, even though I don't think it's that fair. But you know, we had the potential to get discovered just as much as the big bands, I guess, when it came to streaming. Although it's changed now, but back then when it first started, I started to see more of that. So go ahead. Your thoughts.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah, same playing field, but they already had their built-in fan base. You're starting fresh.
Yep.
That's the hard part. Trying to get your name into the same mouths and brains as the people who are listening to those bigger bands. That was the hard part. Still is the hard part.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of that has to come down to bigger bands actually passing the torch down to the little bands, which doesn't happen.
Which they're not doing. Yeah.
Because there's too much risk involved, going back to my point earlier. So, but you know, at least during the 2012-13 era, I started to see more of an even playing field. Like, okay, good, we can finally kind of hopefully get a shot at this, and we don't have to go through a huge label to get noticed anymore.
Right.
Yeah. No,
but there just had to be some way for you to push yourself to become that name, to try and get your name out there. However it was that you did it, everyone's different, every band's different. But that was the hard part, still is the hard part, is getting that name that, sure, it's on streaming, nobody knows of it if they don't know the name.
Yeah.
You know, that's exactly. Just the hard part. You can't get away from that one.
Yeah. No, and like you said, you're on the same level. In a way, you're on the same playing field, right? But at the same time, in a way, I mean, even though what it is, there's a lot of good to that. But at the same time, right? If previous to that, right? If you were on a label, that was sort of how you distance yourself from being, you know, just another band. You know, now because every band is on there, the market, everything gets saturated. Like you said, where do you go? Like, for instance, you know, even if you put on a lot of these lists, you know, these, you know, curated lists, right? Okay. Well, if you put on, but like, I mean, me and of Chris have talked about this in some of our shows. You'll sit there, okay, maybe, you know, put a Madras song on, okay? Well, all of a sudden, it isn't like all of a sudden they're going to start playing a lot of, I mean, there's some lists out there, but it's not like Spotify is going to push all these other underground bands, right, that are in the same realm as Madras. No, what they're going to do is the next thing, you know, you're going to start hearing, you know,
Sepultura,
Behemoth, Sepultura, whatever. Exactly. Slayer. You're going to hear the same old bands following your song. You know what I mean? And that's what, and they do that, obviously, because once again, people, I mean, labels are paying, you know, obviously they're paying the services to do this too, the big labels. You know, they know this is the way people are discovering new music. They don't want them to discover your guys' bands. They still want you to listen to everything they've been putting out over the years. That's why, you know, and you know, we've done a couple of episodes about how, you know, music, I think you were on this one, Tanner. The old music is still, it's killing new music in terms of sales. I mean, destroying it. It's like almost 80% of the market. Because of that, because it's going to take a concerted effort for a music fan to go find me. You have to be like guys like us and go, I'm on this hunt every day to find that new band, that new riff, that new whatever it is. But if you're just a good music fan that likes to go and listen, you know, to shows and buy music, most music fans like stuff fed to them, right? They don't go and look for it the way a lot of other people do. They want it fed to them, but they're still not getting fed. They're still getting fed from playlists, from all the streaming sites, this Pandora especially, the same old songs and same old bands, you know, so that's the downside of being on the same playing field. It's not level. You're just on the same field, but it's definitely not a level playing field.
Sure. Now, answer me this, Matt. What is the difference between old bands and movie franchises? Because to me, they're one and the same for their specific industry. Like, they're pushing old bands and they're pushing old movie industry or movie franchises that'll sell. Because there's not that much risk involved. They have their own.
Yes.
They have their set fan base for that specific movie or that specific band.
Yeah.
They don't have to do a lot to make money.
Well, yeah, they don't have to pay a lot, because like you said, they don't have to pay, someone who's got this great idea, this great, screenwriter or whatever. Like you said, they already have this franchise. There's just same people within it. You've got even the Pixars and stuff. I mean, that's all the same people. They don't have to go out and scout talent and pay talent. Obviously, it's just their way of cutting costs, like everything else. Like I said, no matter what's going to happen, they're not going to lose their money. That's what it comes down to. That's their bottom line. Is we're not going to lose that. If it means that the product isn't as good, which I mean, we see that with music and entertainment in general. Okay, so be it. They don't care if you like it or not. They're going to say, this is what we're giving you. You either enjoy this or tough shit. Now, in terms of the differences, it's really, I think we music and movie. I mean, even though it's all entertainment, it's all Hollywood, it's all in the same vernacular way. It's also very different, right? Because the consumers are different. The way they consume music, the way people consume movies. But it is the same in terms of how they present new talent, which is not. I mean, music's the same way, right? Who's the next new band? There is none. Everyone's now up in arms about this Pantera reunion, which is half of the band. It's not even a reunion. So it's like, this is the new big thing now, right? A band that's an old band with half of the band members, no longer on this planet. This is becoming what's new now and exciting, is that it's not this new up and coming band that we're trying to push. And same with movies, right? You've got the same old franchises. You're just rehashing it, maybe changing up the stories a little bit, making it a little bit more modern to fit, the new generation, the younger kids and what they like and what's being pushed on them or whatever. But, I mean, it's a little different, but at the same time, yeah, whatever it is they're going to do, they're going to keep it in the same. They're not, once again, they're not going out scouting talent in both industries, in both music and movies. But there is a difference. I'm not, I mean, in terms of movie industry, I'm not obviously that in depth into it. But what I see from the outside,
yeah,
of course,
yes,
like absolutely,
all these remakes. I mean, you have some insight when it comes to that. So
yeah. I mean, that's why the movies, I mean, to me, suck these days because it's nothing different. It's nothing new. It's all the same, just rehash shit.
Now, can I ask you this, Matt? Being a media guy, like I guess the rest of us, I don't even like saying it, but from what my perspective is, and I could be wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, but I don't see a lot of guys interviewing quote unquote new bands. Like I hate the business model for the media. What it is you interview these small bands and then a big fish to kind of lock in and that's how you kind of have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of that is, I think what it is a lot of the people who have the passion, guys like us who want to, do podcasts and talk about this stuff and talk to bands and promote them. A lot of them are guys who were never musicians that wanted to be, and they start making shows. They start making it about themselves, and all they want to do is talk to the stars. They're star fuckers, as they call them, right? They just want to talk to the big names. It's like it's to so they could check off on their own, bucket list. Oh, I talked to so and so. I talked to so and so. That's why we see everybody interviewing the same people. Because everyone's interviewing, I mean, or talking about Kiss or, I mean, the same old bands, it's like, yeah, well, to us, it's like, who cares? I mean, it's already been done a million times, and what the funny thing is though, when these guys don't understand is when everyone's talking to the same person, that opens it up where, well, okay, if everyone's talking to the same person, there's not, how are you going to get your numbers? If you're looking for numbers and to grow your show, whatever, it's not going to be done that way. It is going to be done with the new bands. And I'm with you. I mean, I think it's just people who get involved in it. They just want to be stars is what it is. They want to be famous and popular. Look at me. I want to be the next Jose Mangan or the next whoever it is. That's the new metal guy that's on Sirius XM or, I mean, there's, or the next Eddie Trunk. I mean, so they want to talk to those guys. They're not really in it. In my opinion, they're not in it for the way we are and the love of the music that we are. They really are in it sort of they want to like showcase to their friends and family. Look, I'm talking to this guy. Look at me, I'm cool. Because they can now. Remember that? I mean, they weren't able to in the past, right? Guys like us, probably just regular guys who wanted to just do something like this, we couldn't do before the internet, right? You had to go to a magazine and be a writer, or you had to just bring a microphone to a show and do a little interview, on your recorder. But now it's easy just to start. That's why it's 1,000,001 podcasts. But yeah, they all want to do the same thing. They all want to talk to the stars because they're really looking to promote their own stature. They're not really looking to help out, and they're not doing it just out of the passion and love for music. It's a different, it's a different
Their
thing.
own egotistical self-righteousness.
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
Their own
Well,
ego. Yep.
you're only talking like a niche, market in music in general. I'm generally curious if this happens in the country world, in the pop and rap world. Like,
I think so.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if everyone's talking to the same 5 people.
Well, like you were saying before, right? There's influencers now, right? So everyone thinks they're a star. They just got a YouTube channel. They're like, that's what I want to be. I want to be a YouTuber because they see stuff go viral. That's their whole hope, right? I'm going to be that next viral YouTube person. So they see they could just do it from their bedroom and a click of their finger. Where it took a lot of, if you wanted to be someone like that back in the day, you had to go to shows and be in the industry and kind of, communicate and talk to people. Now you could just start a podcast, get a few people on, a lot of, musicians, as we've seen, are willing to talk to just, a lot of just regular podcasts that might not have a huge fan base, and they're willing to do that these days. And so they get a little taste of that, and then they want more. They just want the big fish. And of course, so still the small fish are the ones that are still not getting, any love, which is, but that's what we're doing though, right? That's why our podcasts are doing that stuff, which is
and I think having, I wouldn't even call it alt tech because Rumble to me is a bigger platform now. It's on the same level as a YouTube. I would think that would be the next way to go. I don't see a heck of a lot of music on there, man. I don't see a heck of a lot of it's. Granted, it is what it is. A lot of right-wing conservative people, because they got kicked off of YouTube and whatnot, go to Rumble. But I would love to start seeing like, bands posting more of their music on Rumble, because like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's monetized. I don't know if it's, I don't know how that works compared to that platform, but I think it would generate more people only using a certain platform if more, stuff was available that they wanted to see.
But you got
in terms of music.
Too, okay, musically, but you got to think too. What's easiest accessible? Okay, well, YouTube is owned by Google. Everything when you talk to somebody, hey, what is this? What is their answer? Google it.
Yeah.
Well, why does it have to be Google? Why couldn't it be Ask Jeeves or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But Google owns a vast majority of what's on the internet. So you have to push yourself in the other directions to be on a Rumble, to be on a Truth, to be on
A
whatever
BitChute
the other
or
ones.
Odyssey,
Mm.
Yeah. That's
more competition, the better, is my point.
right.
Yeah,
But it's just a matter of them. Rumble needs to make it easier for people to get on there, just like Google is. That there needs to be a conglomerate that has, God damn it, there needs to be. I'm losing my words.
The control.
Yeah, kind of like, because okay, we'll use Facebook. Facebook is now Meta, not Facebook, right? Meta, so they control Instagram, they control Facebook, they control this, they control that. Google controls YouTube, the blogger, the just so much under that people use. There needs to be that has Rumble within it. Maybe Rumble can build itself up to change its name, and now Rumble's part of this big conglomerate. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, no, it's true. And let's be honest, Rumble just, we've done it with the with our network, you're right. I mean, we've went to Rumble, but to be honest with you, people are just not going there. And to be honest with you, we've been kind of pushing YouTube a little more because of that. It's not because we want to go to YouTube, but that's what people are. In order to get them off and go to something else, it's not. I mean, it's not just going to happen, right? Because everyone's just so comfortable being there. Think about it, a lot of people just get comfortable when it comes to technology, especially a lot of older folks who are not really tech proficient, or they don't like it, right? So they used to YouTube, like Sharon said, it's everywhere, right? Rumble just isn't there yet. It's sort of like when we had MySpace, right? That was the first thing, right? But of course, with MySpace, I thought it was, especially for musicians, for music, I thought it was great. It was fantastic. Everyone basically had their own webpage on MySpace. It was great. But what happened, right? There was all the spam, right? The spam was what ruined it. And the next thing you know, it was just spam bots everywhere. And then now who knows what the tech industry does? That might have been done on purpose in order to get people over Facebook. We don't know. You know what I mean? Because they just knew they had more control over Facebook or whatever. And MySpace might have been just a sort of a psyop to see what people did. Okay, we got it now. We have all the information, the data. Let's use Facebook now as the main thing. But like getting people off Facebook, right? We all know. I mean, everyone I've talked to, Facebook sucks. It does. None of us really like it that much. But everyone's still used to being on it. Everyone's still there, right? So it's like it's something that's not gonna happen overnight, right? It's gonna be a slow, steady thing. If it ever does change off of these social media, I mean, I think Facebook now is starting to slowly really become, less and less. I mean, I've noticed it last year or so. You just see not as many people on it, just not as engaged. But Instagram, yes, what people are at right now is Instagram. That's the main, I think, for music at least. I'm seeing that's where most people are on because it's on their phone. But yeah, but I mean, but just going back to your point, I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, BitChute, I think, has a better platform, the look and everything, than Rumble, but it doesn't hold up like Rumble does. But Rumble, it's just got to improve better. I mean, listen, YouTube's really, I mean, in terms of, the platform itself, it's a good platform. Do I like the way they censor and stuff? Absolutely not. I hate it. And I'm not a huge fan of YouTube. But until Rumble can get to that level, until, you said, reach out and make deals with labels, wherever, it's going to take that. It's going to take a concerted effort for people to say, as a whole, okay, we're tired of this shit. We're moving off of something, but there's got to be something that's just as good to replace it. And Rumble, I just don't think is there yet, man. It's not. I think
it's more user friendly than BitChute. I can tell you that.
It is. Yeah, BitChute's not user friendly, and that's its problem. I think it's got a good look to it, and its platform's good. But and plus it's all, let's be honest with you, it's all politics on there, on both of those.
Well, the reason why is because it got kicked off of the other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So. I totally get it. Yeah, but what people do when they go on there is they just see everything political when they might not want to get into that. They just want to get into music and entertainment.
But the entertainment music isn't there. That was my whole point.
Exactly.
Have all of it. If you want to encompass all of it, have all of it. But the minute you also get corporate money into it is when things go to shit. And that's what happened with YouTube. It's, Google, it won't even do anything with Rumble, meaning like they won't even showcase any videos that you put on Rumble.
They got YouTube. It's competition. It's competition. Exactly. They don't want nothing to do with it.
Although I think I heard I heard that they're getting sued for that, but hopefully,
we'll see.
I could care less about all of it, even though I really like YouTube, but I like Rumble as well. I like more competition when it comes to these.
Well, I don't want to.
And I have a stronghold on music in general. Like I don't dig that.
No, well, that's the thing. And YouTube's got YouTube Music, and Rumble doesn't have anything like relating to music. That's the whole thing. It's just a site that's there to upload videos. I mean, it doesn't have an identity yet. And that's its thing. It needs to have an identity. It needs to focus on one thing first, right? If you focus, say, on music, okay, you get music over, then you can move into other entertainment avenues, whether it's movies or whatever it may be. But you've got to at least focus on something, and Rumble is just sort of there. It's just there.
I agree.
No identity. Yeah.
Well, lastly, I want to thank you guys obviously for coming on and hanging with me. I really genuinely appreciate it. We've went on some nice little tangents and healthy conversations here. But lastly, regarding streaming in general and whatnot, I'm generally curious. Obviously, that killed downloading. Essentially, there's people that. Mm-hmm. That still download, but generally speaking, would you guys say that streaming has killed the downloading market? Because people just want music. That's what it turned out as.
Didn't kill it, especially for, like we were talking about, us younger bands or newer bands, newer bands. Mm-hmm. Bandcamp, we'll use that as an example, even though we've talked about this in the past. Bandcamp has that offer of buy the CD for $9.99, buy the music single for 99 cents. You're still downloading, although this time it's not illegal right? You're paying for free. I mean, on Bandcamp, yeah, there is. Oh well, get these 3 tracks for free, or download our album for free, or give what you wish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I still do that. I still use that. Not a lot. I still use it, but I wouldn't say it killed the download, but I would say it really minimized the capacity that the downloads happen at. I would say the streaming took that over. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. And I think bringing up Bandcamp's a good point because I think with downloading now I might have heard it I think big time on the platforms like the Spotify's or iTunes and stuff, sure. But like Shannon was saying, I think Bandcamp though, and that's why it's great about Bandcamp. It really is I hope nothing happens to Bandcamp, because when they got bought out. But yeah, I think that's the people who go to Bandcamp are really I think the fans of the music, right? They really that's the real music fans, and they'll still like you said. Shan says he still downloads. People still buy. Yeah, I mean, I definitely heard it. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, yes, like for instance, I used to do some downloads, but once I was like, okay, I could spend $9.99 for a whole month streaming whatever I want. Yeah, I pretty much haven't downloaded much since. So I mean, it definitely has put a huge kink into it, no doubt. And once again, who gets hurt by that? The artists, right? Because streaming services are going to make their money. $10 a month from each, at least each customer, minimum. They're going to make their money. But how are they divvying it out to the artists? Probably a lot less. So once again, it's that typical, they're making it. That's why music's been devalued because they're just making it so easy. There's no more excitement to go out to that record store and buy that record and get that paycheck and okay, I got $100. I'm gonna buy a few albums and stuff. Right? They've taken that away by just putting that at your fingertips. I mean, it's still there for you if you want it, but when you're like, I could either go out and buy that record, but let me hear it first. And then sometimes when you hear a record, I think, you hear it a bunch of times streaming, you maybe listen to it a bunch of times. Okay, it's not as new and fresh anymore. So you're not willing to go out and buy that record the way you used to be when you'd first hear it, right? Because you already heard it a bunch of times. So it's like, okay, if I want to hear it again, I'll just stream it. I mean, yeah. But going back to your main question, has it destroyed downloading? I think it's obviously hurt it a lot, but yeah, overall destroying it, I wouldn't say it's destroyed it completely.
I think people have a lack of investment when it comes to music nowadays. I think that's a fair assessment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When, because again, you're talking about 80s and 90s and 2000s when you would buy physical media, you were invested in that album, invested in that band. Nowadays, it's like here today, gone tomorrow. Do you remember when a new album was considered, 6 months or a year or
yeah?
Nowadays it's like a week.
It is.
It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel with Bandcamp, it has been the best platform for a band, period, since MySpace. Mm-hmm. I think MySpace was the king, and Bandcamp is like slowly under it because I see more radical fans using Bandcamp, discovering new bands that way compared to a Spotify, going back to Matt's point of the curated playlist. So, but yeah, I want to thank you guys again for coming on the show and hanging. Let's start with Matt here. What do you guys have coming up as far as Aftershocks, as far as the network? I mean, what's going on in your world here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're still, we still got Aftershocks. It's taking a little bit of turn. Chris really is not really doing Aftershocks. He's doing Tremors now with me. So, there's a difference. Tremors is like what we do with you and just, and do some music business talk and discussing some, we get some guests too on there that, some maybe producers and studio people. We don't really, it's not really for bands. It's more of a music industry thing. So we do that, me and Chris Aiken. But Aftershocks, I'm doing all the videos, interviews. We've upped a lot. I mean, we're putting, that's the thing too, we're putting more video clips and incorporating a lot more stuff into the interviews now. We want to give people, it's great to watch a video with a band, but a lot of people have said, a lot of times they don't know who the band is, they don't know the music. So, what that entails is demonetizing, which we don't care about. I could give a shit about. I'm not doing this for money. So, we put all the clips in now. So we're making it where people can, like I said, get to actually hear the bands now, get to know them a little bit more. than just doing an interview. But we still do that. It comes out on the CMS network, comes out every Thursday. I've also got Seismic Sounds, which is starting up. That's the radio station. It's no longer Crash Course Radio. We're doing more written journalism on there as well that I'm doing articles, doing reviews, and so forth. So that's starting to pick up a little bit now too. I mean, obviously it's time consuming, and I wish I had more time to do more of it. But doing what we can. Once again, it's mostly all up and coming newer bands. We do some, of course, veteran bands, of course, but we're really trying to put an emphasis on new music so people can come hear a couple of clips of their videos, hear their interview, and hopefully go check them out. So that's pretty much what's going on with Aftershocks. Right now, yeah.
How's that No Joke Records, man?
Well, I've told you I've been wanting to get the label back. Let's put it this way, because when I do it, it's going to be vinyl. That's what we're going to focus on. So once the vinyl pressing, madness gets sort of straightened out a little bit, I'm hoping to bring that back. I want to start off with just doing some some of those sort of like comp sort of records where some of these bands, they can take some of these records and sell it to shows, make a little bit of money off it, just to get their name more out there and stuff. So I'm gonna start doing that, and then maybe morph into doing signing bands or doing re-releases and stuff. I haven't figured out, but I don't know if it's gonna be No Joke Records anymore, but it'll be a record label. It'll be back, eventually.
I love it. You're taking like the Eric Kluber approach with his with his no legacy comp and act. That has helped bands tremendously.
Yeah, and that's something that's no longer around much. I mean, that used to be.
Well, stay tuned. Stay tuned, because me and Shannon, we might have to get you back on in a couple episodes, because we're going to talk all about metal compilations and splits and the benefits.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So if you're interested in coming back on, we'd love to have you.
I love that stuff. So yeah, absolutely, man. I love
Shannon.
Awesome. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then it's settled. But obviously, you can go check out Avenger of Blood Bandcamp. They got some new stuff coming. I don't want to spoil it too much. So Shannon, what's going on real quick before we get out of here?
Yeah, just our album's being mastered right now. Working on the cover. The layout of the album should be out October, I would say. In the meantime, we ain't stopping. We continue to write, and we got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon with new recordings. And I ain't gonna delve too much into that, but hell yeah, and I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, look forward soon, man. And I want to thank Matt and, of course, Shannon for joining me today. Guys, thanks so much. And for another episode of Poppitt's Corner, we're out of here. Cheers.